Hello. All right. I think they'll come back in too. So we'll get started. We have some people who stayed, so thank you very much. As I mentioned, Daniel, Dennis, thank you for being here. We're going to be talking about PIM as a keystone for our growth strategies. But why don't we start off with the two of you just giving a quick introduction, who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing what you do, and we'll go from there.
You want me to use this? Okay. All right, so just to give everyone a bit of context about Thrasio, it's one of the sort of new wave of companies, the Amazon aggregator. So, just to be specific about what that means for us, over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, we've acquired spent about $1 billion to acquire 200 different brands from Amazon sellers. They sort of represent lots of different consumer goods categories, everything from sort of pets, outdoor, kitchenware, beauty, sports, fitness, all of these things. Within that portfolio, it's an interesting mix of things that we think have the potential to be household names, as well as, things that will sort of, in the longer tail, if you like, that will always have a very strong set of demand. An interesting example, I think, of that is, just like pillows and salt and pepper grinders, right? The things that you see on the assortment for Amazon. I think the other thing sort of that over time, that means that although Thrasio is not an actual consumer-facing brand, we sort of estimate that 1 in 6 households in the US probably have purchased a Thrasio product. And at that scale, 200 brands, that makes us, I think, puts us in the top 5 of all Amazon sellers by way of scale. So I sit within, so one thing to say is we're operators, we operate those brands. And so we try to bring our expertise to grow them. And I sit within the technology team and responsible for a team of PMs and engineers that are thinking about product information management and increasingly thinking about the concept around product experience and listing optimization.
Hi, Dennis Wilkes with JPW Industries. We took a different approach. We have bought 6 brands in the last multiple years, and so and we do sell on marketplaces, but we own Jet, Powermatic, Wilton, Edwards Ironworkers, Axiom, and Bailey Industrial. So mainly in the wood and the industrial space. So if somebody asks me what I do, I sell everything from a small unbreakable hammer to a CNC mill and lathe and everything in between. So table saws, pallet trucks, overhead lifting. So you can imagine what that's like to get that all into one PIM. So that was kind of our journey when we started, and we were looking for a PIM to be the keystone of what we're doing. So with that, we've got a PIM that marketing can use and that my e-commerce team can use, but my product managers can get things ready to go to market too that way. So we're still in acquisition mode. We'll probably be buying 3 or 4 more companies in the next couple of years, but we're trying to put systems in place that as we buy these companies, we can just plug them into what we're doing. So definitely a PIM is a major keystone to our forward strategy.
I'm going to make you guys work for it a little bit. So awesome. We are here to talk about growth strategies, and what I've heard from both of you, despite being in almost somewhat kind of different industry areas, you are both actively acquiring brands and sometimes at a pretty rapid pace. So let's talk about what acquisitions maybe looked like before you had a Akinio PIM in place. Who was involved in that? What type of challenges were you facing?
So I think that at Thrasio, we experience all the same sort of challenges of acquisition that everyone has, around bringing data in. But in our case, we bought 200 different brands, varying different scales. Predominantly they're Amazon sellers, so there's a little bit of uniformity to that, but it's really about the volume and the pace. We spend a lot of time sort of as a company trying to optimize that sort of M&A machine where it comes to sort of sourcing, diligence, and then executing on the deal. and sometimes, the concerns about, technology or product information are not necessarily at the forefront. So I think initially for us, I think we've been on the same journey as everybody else about getting off spreadsheets. So challenge number one for us with that rate of acquisition has been about gathering and ingesting all of that data as quickly as possible, and increasingly actually looking at the data, the product data, because all of these are individual entrepreneurs that have had different approaches. Even though they're working, predominantly selling on Amazon, they've all had their own ways of managing. So we get to see lots of different flavors of spreadsheet management across all of those acquisitions, and then we have to ingest them. And we're investing now a lot more in making sure that there's a lot of sort of data management is that initial process and gathering, and then again for us it's going to feed into the PIM, and that becomes the sort of where everything flows into, and that in our evolution that becomes a sort of a foundational part. But it's about the pace and the variety of things that were coming in, and trying to normalize it and put it into one central source.
Yeah, we kind of had a similar approach. And what happened with us, a couple of years ago, we bought a brand, Edwards Ironworkers. They're manufactured in Minnesota. And so when we bought them, we did not have our new PIM yet. This is prior to us acquiring Akinio, our partnership. And so we had all this data for 150 different items, then all the accessories, then all the parts that went with them. We really didn't have a way to ingest that into our PIM. Our PIM was not, we had an aging PIM. We did have a decent PIM at one time. We had Hyler back in the day. It was no longer supported by Informatica, and so we had no way to change characteristics and add characteristics, to our existing PIM. So we really struggled. We didn't do good with selling those guys through our distributor network the first year, and our sales on our direct model with their own website went down. So it looked like a colossal failure, because we could not get that information out to our distributors. We didn't do a good job because we didn't have the tools at the time. And that was, I've been on a PIM journey for the last 10 years. I think this is the 4th different PIM conference I've gone to, and I'm a sales guy. I'm not a data guy. So, I leave these conferences and I go, okay, what can I sell today? I got to go sell. And the trick is the data is so important to me. But then we bought another company right after that, and we already had Akinio, and we were able to take their data from their website and plug it in to give us an output so we could quickly build on our B2B network these different products, and we've increased our sales in that product by almost 35% by increasing our B2B network. So it's such a huge part of what we do is to have this as a central core so that each element of our team can use it, and we're not off in individual silos. And so that my data that's on Amazon, and I do have someone that works on my staff that enhances that data. Well, we just switched that up. Used to, he would enhance it there. Nobody else got to use it. So I've got all this great quality data there. I've got comparison charts, all these good things. And we just switched it up. Now he works with the product management team as they're developing new products. He's giving them suggestions of how to give better quality data in the PIM so that when we get done with that process, then we're able to give that to our entire network, to our B2B partners, to our B2C websites, and to get all of that in top-notch shape.
I'm just gonna, as Dennis said about sales, I just was gonna add with our acquisition strategy, quite often when we're looking at these are established products that are doing really well and people already love them, but we're buying them because we think there's an opportunity to grow them even more. And so quite often part of that investment thesis is, we can improve the product information in a certain way. And so getting it into the PIM as quickly as possible and allowing people to actually execute on those strategies, because these are brands that are already, operating very successfully, and we want to put that plan into action. There you go, you have it back.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent. So 2 examples of companies that are acquiring and, both still acquiring pretty consistently. But Daniel, maybe doing it, one of the challenges you're facing, I'm hearing, is that it's happening just so rapidly, despite the data is potentially being, in a somewhat similar format. And Dennis, for you guys, it's maybe more of an acquisition, more of on a yearly basis, but there's just this sheer amount of data in all these different types of formats, and how do you marry all that together? So what I liked what you were just saying, Daniel, about the opportunity for growth, maybe organically almost, by improving product information. So let's talk a little bit about maybe how inconsistencies or challenges that you've found with errors in data in the past, how you felt like that was inhibiting just organic growth of products, and how important maybe that is on Amazon.
Yeah, so obviously we do most of our sales through Amazon, and obviously there are lots of rules of that particular marketplace, and so just even basic things, just making sure that our offers are buyable all the time, and making sure we don't use any sort of language that's going to trigger off any sort of some compliance issues. Yeah, I think that clearly, that's like I said, it's part of the thesis when we buy these companies, that there's room for improvement in a lot of these areas. The brand managers that when they're onboarding, we have a process where we actually, when the brand comes on board, there is like a 90-day plan immediately to either, sometimes it's about addressing inventory management and other things, but increasingly as a focus on, especially around sort of SEO and trying to drive additional organic traffic. Are they missing some key on-page content, back-end keywords, things that could, A+ content, where we try to act on that as quickly as possible. And like I say, that's typically we're looking to try to sort of see that immediate impact and test out some of those theses that they had during the investment process. And that enables, we're getting going now with the Kino and having a lot more hands on keyboard, and it would make it a lot easier for us to go through those gears and do that through a central point.
Yeah, we're pretty similar. We don't buy a company unless we think we can improve it and actually add more to the bottom line. We have the equity partner in New York, and that's what they pay us all to do. So, and we're not always successful. And we bought a brand in the last couple of years, and they have not done well, and hence several people are no longer at my company. So, and we've changed our tactic on that a little bit too. But the trick is, especially selling on Amazon, like you say, is that your data has to be some of the best that you have. If you have incomplete data, like those pair of pants we were looking at in one of the earlier sessions, I don't know how they sold any. I mean, if it's not giving you what you need. And I have extremely complex machines. When you're looking at a CNC mill or a big lathe, they have digital readouts on them, and they have all of these different attributes. And so you have to be extremely technical minded, and you've got to have all of that data in your PIM. Because I can't give it to one of my guys to go build on Amazon unless the base data is good. And my whole team will tell you is that product management will send us, we're going to launch this new product. Will you take a look at the output coming out of the PIM to tell us what's missing? Well, they should already know what's missing. And if they're using a Kineo or any PIM correctly, they should have already gone through their checklist and see it. But then that comes back from my staff and say, well, we can't launch this. We're missing this, and this. So what we're trying to get to is a launch process that these minimum things are required. You can't sign off on the PIM until that's done. Otherwise, we can't launch this product anywhere.
Yeah, data quality is going to be so important too. I like what you said, that on Amazon, when there's so much choice that the consumer has, that you need, whether it's the right technical information, you need the right SEO, the back-end keywords, whatever it is, you have to be showing up and competing there and making sure that you're really winning that customer's business. Awesome. So let's also talk through maybe how, we're talking a lot about Amazon, we're talking about marketplaces, we're talking about growth strategies. What other types of areas, or how are you thinking about putting PIM kind of as that keystone? How is that going to allow you to enable some of those other potential routes to market? Again, Daniel, you're focused on Amazon, but does Thrasio have bigger dreams for a lot of those brands? And Dennis, maybe for you too. We've talked about a bit about B2C, but how are you thinking about using PIM to also help with the B2B, and how important that stream is as well for your growth?
So I think Thrasio is interesting in the sense that relatively young company, and we're still learning about what the right pathway is to growth. So I think that one of the key things about investing in a PIM and having a central source of truth for all of our products, and obviously connecting that to sort of syndication options, is that we want to be able to chase down the opportunities that we see in the market, right? So we definitely see that with a lot of the products, the brands that we buy, we think there's a great opportunity for international expansion. A product that's doing really well in the US or in the UK or any domestic market where they're starting from, we want to be able to quickly move in that direction. We do a lot of also product extensions. We see opportunities to evolve a product. Or to sort of add additional lines, and variation strategy is really important there as well. But yes, other marketplaces as well. So predominantly on Amazon, but we do have some business also on Walmart and on Target, and some specialist sort of more of the 1P sort of specialist retailers as well, and direct to consumer. So I think previously when we had tried to run those experiments and try our hand in D2C and trying to do it at scale, we found it was just way too challenging because we hadn't organized all of our listing content, all the product record in a central place, that it was just trivial just to push it to somewhere else. And so I definitely have, I've been at Thrasio for a year. I've definitely heard from some folks like, where were you? Why weren't you here a year ago? Why weren't we making this investment? Because they lived through some real pain to get listings up in the first place, and then deal with that. So again, we don't know exactly where we're going to be successful or find traction with each brand. Each brand is a little different. As I said, sometimes we think that there's potentially like something that might rival a Unilever or a Procter & Gamble product in the future, and it's really going to have a brand that's going to be known by everyone. And some of the other ones are just going to be long tail products that are really profitable for us if we can manage them at scale, and we want to push them into additional marketplaces to take advantage of that.
Yeah, we're not just focused on Amazon. Like I said, we have a ton of B2B partners, and they sell on their own websites. They sell all over. We have a huge presence on eBay. We have a very large presence on Home Depot. We have partners that are selling that have special deals with Target and with Walmart. So, we go to market quite differently in all these different segments. We sell to automotive wholesale, who then sell to a lot of other small people that are on all these different types of websites. So once again, I'm trying to provide, as the director of e-commerce, I'm tasked with making sure that the data that we send to them is concise and everything that they get. So we've provided to our outside field sales team twice a year spreadsheets that showed all of these different categories. And we've still done that to some extent because we're still working on our syndication and everything. And I have several things, balls in the air working with that. But what I'm trying to do is to get to where we can syndicate to these huge players, the Grangers, the Fastenals, those guys of the world, and so that they automatically get our data. When we upgrade an image, which we seem to do a lot, we changed all of our industrial images a few years ago, and I think we changed like 3,000 images, and we were trying to get them all clean on all these websites. Still not done. That project's still not done. There's still bad images out there on some different websites. So my whole goal was to get the PIM in place, that I can use it as the syndication piece or the backbone of the syndication, so that our data is clean, relevant, and they have the best information that the end user can get.
I think just one other thing, if I can just add, is that what's been really great about actually this conference is talking to other Akinio customers and hearing them say about, well, how do you deal with the people and process part, right? So when we're talking about our path to growth, 200 different brands, then you sort of start multiplying that by the number of channels. In the past, we would hire more people to cover off that very complicated matrix. And so, if we have ambitions to grow and take advantage of these different channels, then having a PIM gives us a real opportunity to sort of do these things at scale and do a lot more systematic work and push this out. And so that is critical to our growth as well. And having the PIM enables us to make those changes in the way that we organize as well. So additional thought.
Yeah, that's great. Let's expand on that a bit more. Let's talk about some of the change management, maybe some of the ways you got people on board, because we often do hear people they're so used to spreadsheets, right? We've all I'm sure everyone in this room at one point has opened up Excel for one reason or another, and we're relatively comfortable using it. And we know, we hear PIM has such a great user experience, but there is still an aspect of change management where you have to kind of shift people's mindset to say, we're going to place PIM as that keystone. What were some of the tactics that you took to be able to do that?
So I think there's probably two parts to that sort of change management journey. I think the first part is actually is kind of getting the support of senior people, C-level people in the company, that they buy into the vision of where you're going. So I know that when I started, we'd already committed to Thrasio, we'd already on this path, but I think there was still a little bit of uncertainty about, I think, like Hani said, just like, is it just get off spreadsheets, or what goes beyond that? So we spend quite a bit of time in my team to think about trying to paint a sort of vision, the North Star of what we imagined, the capabilities we would have with a PIM and coupled with syndication. And what we found quite powerful was actually talking about some little sort of basically little vignettes about what would a brand manager be able to do differently than they do today. And a lot of that case was around, they'd be able to update the product record in one place, and it would then go to any different market. I mean, we have 200 brands that we've acquired. We also have that many Amazon accounts as well, so that's really problematic. You can imagine how many times people are logging into Seller Central. So it was quite powerful to tell that story at the C level. And now, as we progress through the implementation, we're more into the zone of actually getting people hands on keyboard and actually trying to help them reinvent how they should be spending their time, right? So taking away some of these tasks that would have taken them. I think we did a survey, and it certainly was a surprisingly large number of hours were spent on just basically managing listings. So I think we're into that phase now, which is quite rewarding to show people the tool and have them have the amount of time they have to spend just disappear and melt away.
Yeah, we went for a number of years where I was the only one championing this cause. And so I would go to these conferences and come back and say, we need a data team, we need a person in charge of this, and then we need to get it, approved through the C-suite. Well, we went in about it wrong because we didn't have any other cheerleaders on the team. I mean, I'm loud and I can be in your face and everything, but I needed help. So what we did when we finally got serious about this and we had a new ownership group that was willing to spend some money, we brought all the stakeholders in, i.e. the product managers, the marketing team, people that were going to end up being on the data team, and then parts of my staff and everything. And we got them all saying, here's what we're trying to do. And we brought them into we had 4 people we were reviewing at the time. So we got them to all finally go, hands down, they wanted a Kenya, okay? And so, and this went fairly quickly once we went with this process. So we got those stakeholders involved. So that way, when we went to the C-suite and said, we need to spend this amount of money and spend this amount of money for implementation, but I've got not just me and my boss saying we need to do it, I've got the whole product management team, the whole marketing team, my team, and everybody involved, and that's how we got it through. So once we were able to prove that, and everybody's clamoring for it, and everybody's talking about it in the halls, and did you see that presentation, and how good they did, and they answered our questions, and what the ease of use was, it was much easier to get it through the C-suite and get people to sign off on spending the money.
Yeah, and we heard from Dimple at Chico's earlier, right, that having that C-level buy-in is going to be so important. And it sounds like at both of your companies, you were able to kind of build that excitement around it and both understand, how this could contribute to future growth so that C-level buy-in can happen, but also you were able to handle the change management for the brand managers and, the people who are down there in the trenches and get them to sign on to how this is really going to make their lives that much easier as well. So awesome. Well, we have just a few more minutes left, but I'd love to talk, we're talking about PIM as a keystone for growth strategy. So, anything that you guys have learned, or kind of any main takeaways that you'd really like through the journey that you've had with Aquino, with implementing a PIM and being really close to that launch, for you. And Dennis, you've been working with us for quite some time. What is it, maybe that one kind of key piece of advice that you'd like to make sure people take away from this?
It's a great question. I think it really is interesting to say that people say, like, it's this evolution in my mind from initially, like, we just got to get everything in one place, get off spreadsheets, and how quickly you sort of turn to think about the other strategic goals or things that you could do of this. And for Thrasio to be successful with its model, it's about scale. So if we want to continue to acquire at that pace, and we want to manage and operate that portfolio successfully, it really makes you think about how can you do these types of things at scale, so that you don't just have to, you want to be able to scale at a sort of sublinear pace with headcount, and think about what are the things that we're not doing well, and do it in a systematic way. I think that's the other thing, is that these things all become possible for us because we've actually corralled our data and put it into one place. A lot of our listing content used to only exist, if you like, on the edge, right? So in Seller Central, and we didn't have a central place to actually review and to assess where we had, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities to improve. So I've really, I think it's been an interesting journey for us to quickly realize that this is actually a strategic foundation, and is going to be key for us to scale our operation.
Yeah, I think if I was to give any advice, one, don't let one person be in charge of the implementation. Make sure you've got a team so that every segment of the business is represented. We were under some mandates here. We've spent this money. Now our executive group wants to get this launched. So you got this amount of time. And so they put one person, like 100% of their job was doing that. And because of that, we didn't execute it as well as we could have. And so there was people in the room earlier that helped us with that, and they were very good and tried to point us in the right direction. But everything we seem to do is under time pressure, and we all are that way. But I think that the big thing is that you've got to, one, make sure that you pick a solution that one fits you, that one fits your future expansion needs. So in my mind, you've got to have something that's scalable, expandable, and nimble, and I would definitely say that's what the Aquino solution was for us.
Excellent. Yeah. Mic drop right there, Dennis. You killed it. Awesome. No, thank you both so much. This was very insightful. I know that many people in the room can probably relate to what it is that you're saying, and that's really why we're all here today too, is to swap those stories. So I do encourage everyone to find Daniel and Dennis after this session and this afternoon and ask them your questions, hear their horror stories and their joyful stories as well. And thank you all for your attention. I won't keep you from your coffee too much longer, but I'll pass the mic back to Tim to let us know kind of what's coming next.